All right. Aloha Friday, everybody. Thank you for being with me today. I have my brother Ref with me, and we're going to be talking about leadership as usual. But thank you all for joining us today. If you're coming to us through Parade Deck, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, wherever you are, please get in the comments and let us know where you're coming in from. And join us in the comments as we discuss leadership, folks. Today is going to be a double header, so I will be busy here for the next couple of hours, but I'm glad to host my brother Raf as we're coming up on a great milestone for him. We shared a compilation of books, actually 2 books prior. We are co-authors in, and we'll talk about that later as well. But Ref, it's time, brother. It's time, right? We talk about what it is for the Latino community, and I'm so happy to host you today, brother.
Thanks, Enrique. Yeah, it's definitely go time. We're talking right before this call, and like super excited for our community at this point in time. We have so much going on. We have so much momentum. It feels like across the board. So many organizations, so many people doing such great things for our community. Me personally, I wrote the Latino Leadership Playbook, and I've developed now the Latino Leadership Clubs, which are basically development programs. But just an awesome time for us. The representation isn't there for us in the workplace, and we have tools now, right? And we have passion, and we have grit, and we have inspiration. So now it's time to put all this together and make it real. So really excited about this time in our cycle here.
Yeah, so am I, folks. And he just mentioned the Latino Leadership Playbook. I'm going to bring that up so you can see the cover. But it has been a wonderful journey for Ref and all of us that participated in this great book. So, Ref, take us a little bit through what the book's about. What was your goal, and how can folks get that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first wrote the book, and I know I told the story a couple times, but when I first wrote the book, I wrote it for almost like as if I wanted to read it. And, I just wanted to be honest, initially it was going to be a book of do's and don'ts, almost like the Cliff Notes of leadership. Here's, for these given situations, here's what to do and what not to do, like all insights, right? No, forget the stories, there's plenty of inspirational stories. Right. I just want to just tell me what to do, what not to do. I'm very direct in my style, in my learning style. So when I wrote the book, I thought it was going to be, I was like, man, I hope I can fill 40 pages on this thing. Well, 457 pages later, I got the book done. And it includes, again, all actionable insights, but includes some great research and background as far as teeing every concept up. It gets into the mindset as well as the skill set. The mindset is key, especially for underrepresented populations. We don't have that legacy. We don't have business legacy, corporate legacy. And we're the first we're first generation, student, first generation college grad, first generation professional. So we don't have that legacy. And so I created a book that helps, bridge that gap. In the book, like I said, all insights, and I didn't want this to be the world according to me. I have great contributors like Enrique, and I think we had 59 total. So we had Latinas, Latinos, non-Latinos, and I covered some great topics all across the kind of cultural spectrum. How to advocate for yourself, how to work smart, how to be strategic with your career. And then on a true leadership side, we cover things like being a strong communicator, collaborator, executive presence, political savviness, how to operate with impact in a corporate workspace, right? All the key elements that are needed for you to be promotion ready, to be sponsor ready, to create opportunities for yourself. That's how we built the book. And like I always tell everybody, I wish I knew now or when I was 20 years old, what I know now. And that's exactly how I wrote the book. I wrote it if I was going to give it to my 20-year-old self. Literally, if I went back in time, here's everything you need to know to accelerate in the workplace. And there's no doubt if I had this resource when I was 20, I would have cut my leadership journey in half. There's no doubt about it. So I'm helping others do the same.
And I love that. Most of the time, we don't get the benefit of foresight, right? It's always hindsight that we get, and we're looking back. But your endeavor to bring this information from across a ton, it was almost 60 leaders
That's right.
dove in some information and some insight into this book. And so, folks, you can't go wrong. And even let's say if you're not Latino, let's say you are from a certain demographic, you're not Latino, you can still look at this and gain some insight as to how to approach a workforce that is heavy on rising up a different type of people. And that's just the way it is, right? We get in there and you'll get a job. I'll give you an example, right? I got out of the Navy 26 years leading a command and commands of up to 1,000 people. And I get out and the VA offers me janitor. And I'm like, well, I guess I can go back to cleaning. I've done that before. But I was like, what in the world? Yeah, my resume, that's what you can come up with. And so you have to be careful because some structures are made to keep certain demographics in a certain spot. And you got to know how to navigate that. And I think you did a great job, Ref, on taking a person from their initial contact to leadership and bringing them through. Talk about cutting the time in half. It literally is written that way. So if you're a Latino there, Latina, or not, and you're looking for a way of navigating some rough seas in terms of career progression, or you mentioned a perfect word, sponsorship. And I want you to talk about that. We're going to talk about the program more in depth, but sponsorship, having somebody in a room that is speaking about you without you being there. And I often say, we need a seat in the room. I just need a voice in the room.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, that's a great call. And actually, I want to go back to something you said a little while ago. Although it's called the Latino Leadership Playbook, 90% of it applies to everybody. Leadership knows no color, knows no gender. If you're a strong leader, you'll do well, period. And a lot of what's covered, like I said, probably a little bit over 90% really covers everything. So if you want to accelerate your leadership journey, please get the book. It's a great resource. I won't even call it a book. It's a resource to accelerate yourself in a workplace. So Enrique, take me back to your last question. I just want to make sure I get it right.
I was talking about sponsorship that you have called that out. And I said, you know what? That's probably something that we often don't even think about as Latinos trying to make it, right? Because we're always go, 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 work, work, work. And we don't think that far. Yeah.
Great topic. So number one, I'll speak for, not for all Latinos, but just as a community, just some of the trends. We try to, we think we have to do everything by ourselves, to Enrique's point, just work hard, keep your head down to advance in the workplace, to keep advancing and to accelerate. You're going to need sponsorship. You're going to need someone to create opportunities for you. You're going to need someone to speak on your behalf, fight for promotions, fight for raises, fight for exposure, right? It's basically someone who takes you under their wing. And if you think about it, just even yourself, wherever you are in your journey, if you are going to basically vouch for somebody, whoever it is, if it's a younger person or whoever, it doesn't have to even be younger. If you're going to vouch for them, you better have full confidence that you know them, you know exactly how they're going to perform, and that because you're putting your name on the line for them, and you want to make sure everything is locked down before you do that. And so taking a step back and understanding that as you operate in a workplace, and if you do want to sponsor, you're going to want to be highly attractive. Because those are the people that sponsors go after. For instance, when I did my research, and even with my own sponsors, they want people who go above and beyond. They want proven winners. They want people who sit in the front row. They want those who are on high visibility projects and go for it and take ownership, right? People who are putting themselves out there strategically and impactfully in driving the business forward and getting involved with different things even outside the business, that's a superstar. And those are the people that sponsors gravitate to and actually sponsor. The importance of sponsorship, like Enrique said, you just need somebody with that voice at the table. Sponsors, again, at the end of the year, they're going to give their thoughts on you and really present you, right? When it comes to your rating, when it comes to performance, when it comes to bonuses and opportunities. But also throughout the year, you and your sponsor are going to keep talking, have a great relationship, and they're going to create opportunities for you. They'll make warm introductions to other senior leaders across the organization for you. When new opportunities pop up throughout the year, they'll ask you, if you're interested in being a part of that. Obviously, you want to say yes in those situations if they're approaching you. But that's the magic of sponsorship. Without sponsorship, you don't have that visibility. You don't have those introductions. You don't have those people fighting for you. You're just in your own little bubble while everybody else is getting promoted who do have sponsors. So net, learn about sponsorship. I have a great chapter in my book. I go a lot deeper, but it is a requirement if you want to accelerate in the workplace.
And I believe that even in the military, folks, if you are not aware of how things work, there is a set of sponsors that when evaluations are given, there's but so many spots, folks, right? And just like in the corporate market, there's but so many spots. And if a leader or a person that you have as a sponsor is not able to articulate or impress on people how important it is to put you in the position. Now, granted, you have to do the work. Don't think that the sponsor is gonna, wave a wand on you, and you're gonna get somewhere, because you'll quickly fade out, and then their reputation is gone. So they are careful, and for those of us that have sponsored others, we're very careful and meticulous on where we put our chips. But when you're doing that type of work that Ref was just talking about, right? Strategically doing work that adds to the corporation, that adds to your resume, that adds to who it is that you are representing, a sponsor will be an avenue and a person that can get you to where you should be. And
I don't want to follow up on that, Enrique. Just a couple of thoughts. When we talk about sponsorship, think of sponsorship as an elevator, versus the stairs, right? The stairs is your without sponsorship. Sponsorship is the elevator to the top floor. That's the power of it. And the other thing I like to talk about is it in the workplace, everybody talks about, they think it's who you know. It's not that. And when it comes to accelerating in the workplace, it's who knows you. And a sponsor is one of those people who can know you. In the book and in my programs, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, I focus on getting you promotion ready, and just as importantly, sponsorship ready. Both of those are equally as important in my book, and I make sure we get there. So, Enrique, I just want to call out those 2 points.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and very, very good that you did. Which will transition into the program now, folks. I had mentioned earlier there was a book written. If you didn't get that, go back into the video. But the Latino Leadership Playbook, will make sure to have that link for you to go on Amazon or to be able to find that. But from that process, Ref, you developed this program that you've had the opportunity to put in play, right? And we talk about let's go, it's time to go, right? Time to act. Take us through the transition from the book to the program, and then what you're doing with it.
Yeah. So when I wrote the book, so first of all, and the book was step one. I knew I needed to get that done, and when I wrote my book, it's a larger book, and again, it's a reference. It's not meant to read end to end at one time. But understanding that not everybody reads books, and I totally get that. What I wanted to do is create a program, but basically take all the key nuggets from the book and get people's development going. And what really inspired me to do that is, I do a lot of mentoring and coaching on an individual basis. And I take time and I take care, and we build a plan. And to be honest, I hold people highly accountable for results. And when I speak about results, I'm thinking everything I spoke about: being promotion ready, being sponsorship ready, getting a promotion, hopefully, it depends on timing, getting a lateral, getting special assignments created for you from your manager or your trusted, senior level network. Those are key to me. When people are creating opportunities for you, that tells me a lot about you. That means you're ready for things. That you're taking leadership roles in your organization, such as an employee resource group. I mean the chair of it, right? Not just a contributor. So those are the things that I look for tangible results when we do interaction and coaching and mentoring. So based on the book, I had all these concepts. I'm like, you know what? I want to test if I can do this at a mass scale. So what I did is I partnered with 15 colleges and universities. So I created like the academic version of this, as well as a professional version of this, where I partnered with 15 corporations across the U.S. And again, I can't bring everything into the book, into the training, but we did basically a 5-month program, and we met once a month for 2 hours, and we went deep on topics. And the beautiful thing about my experience is, again, it's very results focused, very mindset focused, right? I had to get that confidence up. Once you build the confidence, that leader is gone, right? Gone in a great way. That's all you got to do is show them the way and build that confidence. And so we covered things like how to advocate for yourself, how to leverage culture as a superpower, which a lot of us don't know. So, for example, as Latinos, and there's many cultures, but as Latinos, we are very comfortable with cultures, right? We're very inquisitive, and we naturally accept different cultures because even within our culture, there's different cultures. And so that translates great into the corporate world because it allows us to get into these global roles, right? Global companies, and quickly connect with cultures around the world. For instance, I do it in my position at AbbVie, global pharma company, but I'm able to quickly assimilate and connect and drive business and drive relationships, right? All that stuff extremely important for Latinos that can bring forward. We have that naturally, as an example. So I know I'm saying a lot here, but it's very well structured. 5 months, 2 hours in every 2-hour segment. We touch 2 or 3 different topics, and the program itself, it's not just I come and say stuff and good luck. What I want to do is reinforce the training, reinforce the development, really. So I hit you with videos. I hit you with my playbook, which you'll read ahead of time for those given chapters. I'll give you real experiences that I use, have been successful for me in my career, especially working with the C-suite. You get to hear from the other people in the cohort and hear their experiences. You're getting pounded from many different angles on the same topic in different ways. And it makes you think differently, and it makes you learn differently. And those are the experiences that help these concepts stick that you can apply to your career. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned something important that I think is crucial. Advocating for yourself is not an easy thing because you have to find your voice. And then after you find your voice, you have to know whether or not your voice is needed in that arena that you are. You may be in the wrong place, right? So a lot of leaders out there right now have heard their voice but mimicking somebody else, because unfortunately that's what happens. So how would a leader go by to identify their voice? Because we get drowned by many others, right? And there's this flattery thing about imitating another leader that got there. But I have learned in my lifetime that imitating somebody else is it's basically rolling down their map and their roads. And I have lost time because it just wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. So how do you get a person to identify that?
Yeah, I'll talk about advocating for yourself. Then I'll dig a little bit deeper. It's interesting, Enrique, when I talk about advocating for yourself, I think it's by far the number one topic that people struggle with. People think it's a personal branding statement, or I got to showcase or I got to talk about my achievements. That's a small part of it, in my opinion. Advocating for yourself is how you operate, to be honest. It's the types of projects you get involved with. It's the type of people who are in your network. Hopefully they're senior leaders. For instance, if we just met, you could tell me all day, every day when we first meet, you could tell me you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I am not going to judge you until I see you in action, right? And so right away, I'm looking for, do you operate with vision? Do you collaborate well? Do you develop other leaders? What types of projects are you in? What type of special assignments do you have? What type of leadership roles do you have? And what's your vision for each of those, right? Like, to me, the way you operate, and operating with conviction and confidence and being well prepared and all these leadership qualities, that's advocating for yourself. How you operate day in, day out, how you carry yourself, how you project yourself. When I see that and I can experience that and I can feel that, you don't need to tell me how good you are. I see how good you are and I can advocate for you. So for instance, with my brand, I don't think I've once told anybody all the stuff I've ever done. I don't think I've ever done that. But I get noticed. And I get noticed because, like I said, I operate at the C-suite. I'm presenting new ideas. I'm presenting visions. I'm always extremely prepared. I always tell a great business story with great decks and great messaging, right? I pressure test my thinking. I check my math, my mental math with trusted advisors and senior leaders and operational folks. So I'm aligning, I do really good with aligning and collaborating. I'm always super prepared. I send decks in advance, especially to senior leaders, things like that. When I show up to a meeting, I'm always early. My image is on point. I'm poised. I'm articulate. Those are the things that people see. That's me advocating for myself. That's me building my brand. And now it's at the point where people know exactly what to expect when they see me. Again, it's a point at the end of the year. I don't need to tell my boss all the things I've done. My boss tells me the things I've done. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it, because he sees me in action. So bottom line, the best way to advocate for yourself is to operate max efficiency, max impact, max preparation. And then as far as finding your voice, my best piece of advice is, regardless of where you are, whether it's a meeting like this, or I should say like this, but whenever you're in a meeting or wherever you are, basically, especially in the workplace, whether it's virtually or in person, over prepare, especially for meetings. Over prepare. The more you prepare and the more you show up early and have ideas going into the meeting, you're going to be on point. You're going to be so ready to add value to that meeting. And when you add value and add impact, that's the best way to advocate for yourself in these types of settings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the proof is in the pudding. Let's just say there, right? It is. And so I want to take this time right now to thank all those that are joining us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other platforms. I see Jim is coming in from Kenya. So it's nice to have you with us, Jim. Thank you for joining us. And all those that are joining, please let us know where you're at and where you're viewing us from. We love to at least greet you during this time. Now, Rev, you build a program. It's months. It's not a couple of weeks. It's not nothing like that. It's months. 2 hours at a pop. It's a pretty good investment. Take us through that program. What are you seeing from the participants? What are you seeing? And I know you mentioned the growth there exponentially as you're going through both facets of the professional and the collegiate, which is a great dynamic, by the way, because one goes into the other, right? So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The program, it's interesting. I designed it the way I try to learn myself. I hear, just taking a step back, a lot of times, people go to conferences. I went to conferences, right? And you hear all these great insights, and people, they're great 100%, but people leave and there's no accountability. There's no real growth, right? Just it's like a bunch of cool stuff and you leave. I want to develop a program that the concepts were sticky. I'm in this not to make money. I'm not in this for entertainment. I'm in this to drive your development, period. And I want to see tangible development. And like I said, it's being promotion ready or getting promotions. It's being, getting laterals. It's, getting, sponsorship ready or getting sponsors. Also, senior level mentors. I like to go VP and above. That's kind of my that's where you can really impact. And once you get that VP, hopefully they can turn to sponsor someday, right? But you can see I'm going after impact. I'm going after results. And so when I first start the program, that's exactly how I tee it up. The expectation is you walk away with some sort of results on this thing. Coming, listening, and taking notes, that's not going to cut it. And so that's why I teed it up, and it's been very well received because people are excited about their careers. They join my program because they're stuck, or they're uncertain, or whatever it is. This program breaks down barriers. It gets things growing, right? And so just to provide the structure, I have 40 people, all virtual, in my cohorts. But a lot of team discussion, right? We cover specific examples, literally step by step by step. Here's how I did this, or here's how I did that. Here's how you engage with senior leadership. Here's exactly what they're looking for. Here's what to send them ahead of time. Here's what to send them after. Here's how to execute a meeting with senior leaders, right? Here's what a good deck looks like, a good business deck. And I show them a couple different examples. Here's how to storytell, all this stuff, right? It's really around that part around communication. Or like we just spoke about, Enrique, here's how to advocate for yourself. And let's walk through examples of that. And then how would you do it, right? And so I think in all we had like probably 12 or so topics. Again, we covered 2 or 3 topics per session. And then in between each session, everybody had, they had homework. Again, either it's reading the chapter in preparation for next session. It's how did you apply the concepts? And then at the beginning of each session is, okay, how exactly did you apply it? What are the results you got? What are the next steps? So bottom line, after 5 months of this, I saw the results. People were getting promoted. People were getting sponsors. People were building their network. For instance, there's a regional store manager for a national chain in southern Florida. He says, before this program, I didn't know I needed to build my network at this level. We're talking VPs and above. And now, not only is he doing it locally, but he's doing it nationally. And now, again, going back to not who you know, but who knows you, he is spreading his brand literally across the nation because of that's just one example. I have people taking leadership positions for different things. A couple of people, landed sponsors, and those sponsors opened up new opportunities for them within the organization. It was those types of things that came to life. And that's at a professional level. At the college level, you have students now taking on leadership roles in colleges and universities. Like, I need to do this. You have them looking for sponsors and mentors outside of their initial area. They're looking nationally. They're growing their networks nationally. These are elements and key behaviors that are going to tee up their entire career. And they've learned these lessons now. I didn't learn these lessons until I was probably in my mid-40s. They're learning them now in their 20s, and that's what's going to change the game in the future.
And that's a great strategy. As you was talking about the collegiate side, many graduate and have no experience, right? That's what they've been in school. So where are you going to get experience? Well, that experience comes from what you get into while you're in school, right? And a lot of folks will cry about the lack of, substance on a resume when they're going for their first job. But collegiate folks have an opportunity to build that up through their volunteerism, through their heading of different sectors in school, different initiatives and campaigns that the school may have. That's where you prove that you can actually do that in a professional setting. Now, you still have to build up your work resume, right, through your job, but there's attributes that lead to someone instantly looking and saying, oh yeah, this one right here is going to be a good one, because you've already shown that type of effort, that interest in leading. Now, if you don't want to be a leader, by all means, let us know that you don't want to be. That way we know where to put our effort. But because a lot of times, Ref, right, we'll get these folks that come in and we think, oh, they want to lead. We find out that they don't want to lead ever. And it would be just kind of like our hope for them. And then that goes awry. But it's wonderful to see that you have created 2 aspects of this, because like I mentioned earlier, one leads to the other, right? The collegiate goes into the professional. If they have this already, how much more? Now, I know the professional folks are really getting something from this, because you still need some guidance. But what if you came with that? How much more fruitful your professional time would be.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have some. So I know we talk about developing skills at the college level, which is a big part of it, right? Start getting going on your skills. The other part that I zoom in on is how to navigate the professional environment, specifically corporate. That's why I lead, because that's where I work. And so, when I spoke to college, I was like, right away, what an ERG is, Employee Resource Group, get involved with that, right? Because college students didn't know what that was. We talked about mentors and sponsors. Obviously, you're not going to come in, you're not going to get a sponsor right away. But I said, first couple of years, use it to build your brand and get those mentors, right? And senior level mentors, and work towards that and fight for that. And then eventually you get your sponsors. The other thing, I provided a roadmap. And, the way I thought about it is like, man, if I was back in college, knowing what I know, if I had my first 18 months in the workplace, what would I do differently? And obviously, focus in, do your job well, zoom in. That's table stakes. Everybody should be doing that. But then what I would do differently is leaning into the business. So really learning the business of the company I work at, right? The core business, the industry, focus on that. I would definitely set up meet and greets across the organization, start, developing my network, start learning, right? Showing my brand and all that. I would start looking at, to be honest, as soon as I came in, I would start looking at my next opportunity. What do I, based on what I'm learning with my meet and greets, what do I want to do next? I'm at 2.5 years, I should be moving to the next thing. And so Latinos need to have that mindset. And I'm teeing up the younger group to start thinking that way already. So now they think that way. And so, in coming with ideas based on what you're learning and helping connect dots based on what you're learning and bringing that back to your team. Don't just, learn stuff and just keep it. But that's how you add value. With the more you can connect dots, bring that back, that's adding value to your team, your business. And again, those things make you stand out. And then obviously along the way, stay very closely connected to your leader. And again, I set up the expectation too with leaders, and Enrique, I know you can speak to this, is that bosses are temporary and not all of them are good. So with that perspective, understand, leverage your boss as best you can. If you can, if they're a bad boss, some of them are, understand it's gonna be temporary, but just keep moving, keep driving, and keep growing. So anyhow, I give them that foresight, how to navigate, what to do, how to add impact as soon as they get into the workplace. So it's not just them in a corner doing work, but it's really them spreading impact across the enterprise.
Absolutely. Now, I wonder how many of those listening would have benefited from some strategy around how they went through their college time and how they integrated themselves into their professional life. So if you have those tips or questions, throw them in the comments and we'll look at them. Or if you have a question for Ref in terms of your professional endeavor, that maybe we can answer while we're here on the air, would be a great thing. But thank you all for joining us. And I see that my brother Havard is all the way from Norway joining us. Thank you for that. And all right, thanks. So thank you for joining us. Now, Ref, there are a lot of collegiate kids, college students that don't even know how to or where to ask for some type of program like this. In your collaboration with the universities or the colleges, how is that being pushed out? How are you getting the word out? And obviously, we're using this platform right now to kind of do some of that. But how do they entreat those students to try to find out more about this program and have them join?
Yeah, there'll be a couple of things. Doing the test run was really important, just to, number one, to prove out the model works, which it did, but then also to develop my advocates, if you will. So now I have a bunch of colleges and universities who will advocate on my behalf and can basically vouch for me. But what I'm doing now, Enrique, is I'm getting involved with, so for instance, I work with the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute with Dr. Andrade, and they provide platforms for me to speak about the program and the results of the program and get others. So for instance, I did a talk probably about a month ago to about 50 HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions. Basically, I think they have to be 25% or more Hispanic at a given institution. But there was a ton of excitement, a ton of interest. So I'm going to be leveraging those groups. And that was just here locally in Chicago and the Midwest. But my goal is to leverage these types of organizations to spread the word as as to make this program available to everybody, really across the nation, across the globe. And so, so leveraging my relationships, leveraging the national partnerships. This program is too important for it not to be out there and leveraged by our community.
Yeah, and our community does need these types of resources. Now, we're focusing on Latino, Latina, because the framework is there for that. But as we mentioned earlier, that it not necessarily has to be a specific thing. About 90%, you said the book is, worthy of any person looking to advance their career or professional life. What is your plan here? Let's say the next 5 years for the program, and how can a person get get into it if they wanted to join?
Yeah, I'll hit the first one for. I'll hit your last question first, and I'll come back to the 5-year plan. So I'm actually in the process of creating all the marketing materials and updating my website, refugioatilano.com. With the program, so that'll be available at the end of this month. Literally, I think on July 30th or 31st. So you can always tap in there and get all the information. Between now and then, if you are interested in the program or anything, or just want to talk, hook up with me on LinkedIn. Send me a direct message, and we can have a conversation. My next cohort is starting in September, so I'm actively going to be recruiting starting July 31st. But if you want in, let me know, and we can definitely talk. I think it's $2,500 per person for the 5-month experience, plus a full money back guarantee if I don't transform you into a strong leader. That's I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I believe in my product. As far as my plan, I do have a full-time job. I work for this global pharma company, so a lot of stuff I do, my classes are in the evenings, which works well because students and professionals, everybody has a day job or day whatever, and so we do stuff in the evening, so it works out perfectly for me. And so anyhow, I have a great position, global position. I'm actually director of cultural competency. And so I actually get to leverage all this stuff for actually my regular job, which is phenomenal. Well, my 5-year plan, who knows? I'm adding impact in so many different ways from a leadership perspective. Within my job, I'm trying to advance health equity for all underrepresented populations across the world. So that's really a passion of mine as well. I mean, bottom line is I'm a very compassionate individual, and I want to help our community as much as possible in as many different ways as possible. So Enrique, to your point, 5 years from now, who knows what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to be great somehow.
And I know that is going to be the case, as I've seen you not only get into the book, but also what you've done from that has been very strategic, very, future looking. And I appreciate everything that you are doing, and not only for the Latino community, but for those that can actually take something out of the book and implement it and hopefully get into your program. Folks, 5 months is a small investment when you're talking about the rest of your life. And a 5-month investment now can give you dividends for years to come. And so I encourage you to look into the program, and also to reach out to Ref and see, if you want some guidance or whatever in terms of what he can provide. I'm sure that if you put some stuff in the comments, we'll be able to address those here live. But I'm sure that you can ask some questions to either him or I here in the future. Now, Ref, we were briefly talking about positioning ourselves as a Latino community. The times in our nation, not to speak to somebody else's nation, but our nation, are shaky. There's a lot of doubts. There's a lot of fears around what will come January, right? Because November is one thing, but January is another. Come January, from especially from the Latino community. I have my own fears in terms as being a Puerto Rican, and I've shared those with you. But how can the Latino community position themselves, start getting, their thinking caps right, to be a valid voice as we're coming into this, political time where, they can put their chips on themselves, right? And really solidify their voice and make their voice be heard. I know we both have some political aspirations, or at least the thought of. I know I have always said that I would be someday the governor of Puerto Rico. And when you talk, and we've talked, and we know that we bring a level of leadership that we wish we could see. But how can the Latino community position themselves to have a good impact on the rest of our future here?
Yeah. I'm not going to get too crazy political, but here's what I will say: inform yourself, and think short term as well as long term. What's important to you? I know as Latinos, our community is very important to us, and family is very important to us. And so when you hear, I was listening to the talk yesterday at the RNC, and when you hear things like, mass deportations, that's people being potentially ripped apart, right? And so family is such important to us. So I just ask for Latinos to think in terms of what's important, and then determine how you want to, lean in, vote, advocate, whatever you're going to do. But do it from an informed position. Again, short term as well as long term. In short term, it's good to think about money sometimes. Long term, let's look at those values. Let's look at what we want to achieve as a community and who's going to put us in the best position to do that while also respecting our cultural values and our norms. That's all I'll say about that. But to me, I'm extremely passionate about our community, what's important to us, ensuring that we tee ourselves up optimally for the future. And so with me, I'm going to be definitely leaning in with my vote on a person who helps make that real.
And I believe information, folks, is where you will have to lean in. This is really not a Latino, non-Latino type of situation. What we're trying to talk is leaders are informed. If you aim to lead in any capacity, I don't care if it's at your job, I don't care if it's at your home, you have to be informed. And I think that a lot of times that we just let things just slide by, go ahead, it's going to be what it's going to be. Well, it doesn't have to be. That's the thing, right? If folks that are informed can make a decision, right, the outcome is going to be the outcome. But please participate in terms of being informed, allowing your voice to be heard, and being a positive impact on our future. There's a lot riding on any level of public service, right? It doesn't matter. We could be talking about the alderman, and if you're not informed, you let the wrong alderman rule, then that's it, right? So information is key, but let your voice be heard. Don't be silent in the background. If you're able and are legit to vote, go ahead and do that, and let your voice be heard. Now, Ref, we've had the privilege of having shared a couple of books together. One of them is still pending. The male book, the male leadership book, and I'm excited for all that. A Latino leader, right? And I'll focus on Latino now. Latino leader is ready, has recognized that, man, I need to change something because I'm getting passed over. And we talked about your voice, and we talked about mentorship, and we talked about sponsorship, and we talked about how to get into a program that will allow you that. But a person in this position that is lacking strategy, right? Because a lot of times I remember that a young person would come to me and say, how do I get to this?
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell them, well, you're evaluated every year. Now that evaluation happens to be public, right? There's a standard. Take that and reverse engineer it to where you are. And then you should be all right. Now, I would go into a little more depth, especially specifically, but how can they reverse engineer something? Because in the military, we got standards.
Mm-hmm.
corporations sometimes differ, right? So how would they go about that?
Yeah, and to follow up on the point you just made, you said evaluate every year. I almost want to say you're evaluated every day. Every day you're on. The end of the year is just when they summarize it all, but you're evaluated literally every day. And that's why, to me, advocating for yourself, every moment, literally every interaction is a moment, is an opportunity to advocate for yourself. So take advantage of that. Number one, be aware of it, and then take advantage of it. And what's the narrative that you want out there for yourself? Do you want to be the person who is, late all the time? Do you want to be the person who's on time, well prepared, and everything we spoke about earlier, right? But use every opportunity as an opportunity to advocate for yourself, because at the end of the year, again, it's just all summary of what you showed every day. So hopefully that plays out. The other thing, being strategic about, you should be thoughtful about everything you do, and to take it a step further, check your mental math. So, for instance, with me, I have a network that I use, a mentor network, if you will. And people call them board of directors, but they're mentors, and sponsors. And whenever I make a big decision, career, business, or just something I'm thinking through, number one, I take time to think about it. I don't just react like that. I'm very thoughtful. I'm very reflective, especially for big things. And I'll map it out. I'm a big whiteboard guy, so I'll map out a whiteboard on a big piece of paper. But I'll get my thoughts in order, and as far as what I came across, and then how I want to address it. And then I'll check, again, I'll schedule a meeting with a VP mentor, and I'll say, hey, I got this situation, in which, by the way, they appreciate when you come with a situation, you have it well thought out and everything. Got this situation. Here's what happened. Here was the impact, right? Here are my thoughts to address it. And then here's a potential impact of that. And here are my different options and pros and cons. But the more thoughtful you are, so whether career move, opportunity, challenge, issue, whatever it is, it forces you to always, be in that mode, and right, to operate logically. And again, that's a great behavior for leaders. People will see that. And the more thoughtful you are, and the better prepared you are, and better decision making you have in place, because you're checking your math and you're landing on those great decisions. Those are things that are going to advance yourself in the workplace. So it all ties together. So Enrique, hopefully that answered your question.
No, absolutely. And on top of being strategic and all that you said, you have to have the want to. A lot of people are okay where they are. And hey, look, if that is the route you want to go, because not everybody's going to lead. If we had competition all the time, it'd be really tough. And we can pick out those that want to lead and those that want to follow, and that's okay. Because in my belief, the greatest leader is the best follower, right? So you got to follow anyway. It doesn't matter if you're leading or you're following solely. But identify what you really want. And when you're talking about career progression, it's really what you want. What do you want of it? And if you have aspirations to a level, then make it known. Make it known by, and I love how you said it, Ref, proof is in the pudding. Make it known by what you do. Every day, day in, day out, should say, or should be screaming, oh, this is the future leader, no doubt. Maybe they got some time to go, but there's no doubt this person right here. And believe me, seasoned leaders can pick that out right off the bat. I mean, the first time you show up to work and you look different in terms of more professional or more well presented, and you're like, okay, I'm taking notes, buddy, because I know that is peculiar. That's something that I don't see every day here. So now it's showing up. And believe me, senior leaders take note, and they start to make those mental notes for the future. And I love how you said evaluation is daily. I remember an individual said, leadership requires a price, and it's due every day, right? Every single day it's due. So hopefully, if you've been with us this whole time, and I see a lot of folks that are still with us, thank you for being with us. If you have any questions for Ref or I, throw them in the comments. We'll get to them. if not through the live later on as we're coming to a close now. But if you have aspirations to leadership and you don't know how to get there or what you need to do, then Ref's program is the one for you. And you really need to inquire about that. So please send a message, send a invite, connection request, however you will, to inquire about that program. But Ref, it's been a great honor, brother, not only to collaborate with you, but also to see how far you have pushed this envelope in Latino leadership, especially with the book, what you're doing with the collegiate side, and now the professional. And we wish you all the best. And is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with before we close it out?
Yeah, well, number one, thank you for everything, Enrique. Just a phenomenal conversation. I love this stuff. So I like you, I could talk about it all day. The last thing I'll leave with the audience with is, to Enrique's point, not everybody, is looking to accelerate their career. Totally get it. Whatever your life situation is, do that. Do what's best for you. Be right for you and your family. That's number one. But if you are looking to accelerate, I have a great product. And like I was telling Enrique before this, it's go time. To be honest, I'm done talking about why we need to do it. Let's get down to business and let's do it. And so if you're interested, hook up with me. I'll be glad to have a conversation.
Absolutely, folks. Reach out. Don't be that type of person that has an opportunity and there it goes, right? It surprises me, Ref, every single day when I offer something and literally it's free. The program is not right. Future's not, but it'll be for free. Hey, I'm going to give out this book. Crickets. All right. So if you are a person that is looking to ramp up their career professionally, or even if it's just to refine yourself personally, which are always the best bet, right? That's really where it really counts. Then reach out to Ref, reach out to myself anytime through the comments or through a DM, however that may be. But don't sit on the sidelines having resources as such as the Latino Leadership Playbook and the program, or just us individually, right, that have years upon years of experience to be able to help you either as mentors and in your company as sponsors. Ref, thank you so much, brother, for spending the last 55 minutes with me. And as we prep for the next guest here coming up, Ref, God bless you, man. God bless what you're doing. Thank you for all you're doing for the Latina community and at large, the professional community.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
All right, folks. So here we are. We're continuing. We got a doubleheader. Ref has been so good to be with us and share what he's doing in the Latino community. It's so encouraging to see professionals, leaders come in and to the rescue, really, right? To those that want to do something great. And talking about something great, I have my fellow outlier, Lyndsay. She is the powerhouse. I'm not going to spend too much time telling her, but I'll spend the whole entire show talking about her alone. But she is amazing. Like I said, fellow outliers, we're going to make sure to put the outlier link so that you can check them out. And, if I could say something real quick about Lyndsay is that impact is her thing. If you want impact, if you want to shine, if you want to get to the position that you desire, the way she does this, it's not only been highlighted on networks and magazines and even the New York Times or the Times Square billboard, right? She's been on there. She just does a phenomenal job. So I'm going to bring her in here because I think I might be making her blush over there. She's great. She's great. Lyndsay, thank you for being with me on this doubleheader as we are tackling leadership, tackling the things that will make us great.
I'm so happy to be with you. This was a long time in the making, and it is my favorite subject. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being with us. Now, I kind of, propped you up there because it is due, right? The work that you've done with leaders throughout the time that you've been doing it has been so impactful. I've seen folks go from, struggling to empowered, and it's no short thing. That's not a thing that is not easy. It's
No.
not easy to get people from one place to the next. Sometimes they don't even know where they want to go. So, but before we get into all the conversation around what you do, tell us a little bit about you. Tell the audience
Yeah.
what you are doing.
Yeah, sure. I'll share my story and I'll condense it as best I can. So, I spent 25 years in corporate America and 23 were climbing the ranks at IBM. And I actually grew up a Big Blue brat. So, my family put in 105 years at Big Blue. So that was a culture I was really comfortable in and a part of. And for many years, I never thought I'd end up there, and I did. But I led big sales teams for them, and I had great leaders and not so great leaders. But at the end of 23 years, I was ready for a change. And so I went to another company that sought me out and asked me to come run a sales team for them. And in 6 short months, they fired me. And I was pretty sure I was the only executive to ever be fired on earth. I was gutted. I was sideways. I was so brokenhearted, and it was deeply personal. And anyone that tells you losing a job is only business, oh my gosh, shame on them. But I took a moment and I asked myself 3 questions. What am I good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And I knew how to build modern leaders, and I knew how to create irresistible culture. I had done it many times. And so I started my company, Heartbeat for Hire. And that was 2.5 years ago. And I wrote my first book, which is Top Down Culture. And I started a podcast, and we just hit episode 107 on Wednesday. I just have a second book coming out this month called Voices of Women. I coach, I speak, and I do LinkedIn workshops too, because that's become a real part of this journey and a huge part that leaders need to really embrace and understand. And I do a ton of other stuff on the side, like Times Square billboards and crazy, crazy things. But yeah, that's my story.
No, that's a wonderful story. Now, I don't know how many of you watching right now have ever been fired. To Lyndsay's point,
It hurts.
that's as personal
It hurts.
as it gets. And walking away. Now, I've walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I haven't been fired, but I've walked away.
Yeah.
And even that process of, because the way I felt was I abandoned my post, right? And I come from a military background. That's like a no, right? You don't do that.
No, you don't quit.
Yeah,
it wasn't in my blood.
Right,
That was never
right,
something I was going to do. I was going to suffer long before I was ever going to quit.
right. And so, and we do that. We do that. And so, suffering is not something that's good. Right? It doesn't feel good.
It's unhealthy.
It's unhealthy, right? It goes against every fiber in our brain to
Totally.
That fight or flight. There's no fight or flight or stay. Right? There's no so you go through this experience.
Yeah.
You're like the only executive that
I was sure. I mean, I'm like, who would ever work with me? I felt like I had the scarlet letter. I was like, oh my gosh, I have so much shame around this. And the truth of the matter was I learned so much. And, being under a really terrible leader, and this leader was a phenomenal individual contributor. She was a master of sales, but she had no, what I call power skills, other people call soft skills. And she was just very like cut and dry. This is how it is. And it's not working. She wanted me to be a micromanager. And that was not something I was ever willing to do. And my team knew that was not something they wanted, not something I wanted. So they helped me kind of run it. They would be like, what do you need to get her off your back? Let me help. But those moments up until I was fired, I was so stressed. I was waking up at 2 a.m. and checking, oh my God, I forgot to send an email. And oh my God, did I do this? And did I say this right? And when you are in that corner of second guessing yourself all the time, you cannot perform. You can't. And I talk about this all the time, Enrique. And when you can give people space to do the jobs they were hired for, that's where the magic happens. When you build trust and you build psychological safety, that's the good stuff. That's when everyone will innovate, collaborate, communicate, have fun, and support each other. And that was not the environment I was in. So, though it was super painful, it was the blessing I needed. And getting shoved out of that nest was what gave me the strength and the desire to never have anybody go through what I went through. And she wasn't the only bad manager. I had many bad managers. So I took all of those stories and all of those lessons and I shoved them in my book. And that's what I use when I speak. But I believe that there's not enough great examples of leadership out there. And it's on me and other people like you who like to talk about leadership to really provide those.
In the gym, we say no pain, no gain. We don't want to hear that professionally,
No,
right?
no.
At all. Right? And as you're talking about, the pain or the shame and things like that, I was in a similar situation where I was hired as a leader, specifically stated, you are a strong leader. That's what we need here. I misinterpreted strong.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for military might.
Oh.
And I was talking about, my ability to impact people, right?
Right.
So the strength was off, but let's just say they didn't see the type of strength that they wanted, and it became a micromanagement type of situation.
This is the topic that when people are promoted and given an opportunity to lead, they don't teach the human side of leadership. And that's what I think is missing all over the place. Now, I was in sales where pressure is high and the quotas are often astronomical and unattainable. And there is this mistaken process that leaders think of, well, I've been promoted, therefore you should respect me. Or now that I'm in this role, I can tell you what to do. And I'm going to expect that you understand my leadership style. Well, why would anybody understand your leadership style? And the truth of the matter is you don't want to be the star of somebody's bad memory. You want to be the leader you always wish you had. And the best leaders that I always had were the ones that were like, how do you want to run the business? You've been here longer. You know about this topic. Tell me what you're thinking. Whenever somebody did that for me, I was like, oh, I have support. Oh my gosh, let's go get creative. And when I could take that energy and turn it to my teams, my leaders would in turn it to their teams and it would magnify. But having that safe space is so, so important. And I think leaders aren't taught this. So that's why I do this work. I want more great leaders out there. I want more great stories of this leader stood behind me and said, I've got your back, and watch what they can do. That's really what we need.
Absolutely. And now, folks, we could spend the whole entire day talking about this. But because there's plenty of not so good examples of folks in leadership position, right? Yeah. That's why we are employed. So we could talk about that at length. If those listening, viewing, have had a run-in, let's say a run-in with some poor leadership, do us a favor, throw it in the comments. Tell us about it.
Yeah.
Speak it, because sometimes bottling it is not going to help. Right.
Well, and Enrique, when I stand at the front of a room and I ask the audience, who here has ever had a bad leader? 100% of the room raises their hands. Now, if I ask, who here has had a great leader? The numbers are far less. And that's sad. And so the amount of people I bump into that'll be like, Lyndsay, I've never had a great leader.
Wow.
That's so terrible.
Wow.
That's so terrible. And especially right now, we've got the most generations we've ever had in the workforce. We've really got to figure out ways to collaborate and communicate. And I don't ever want to hear people saying, oh, Generation Z or Generation whatever. Like, don't do that, because everyone did it to us. It's a crappy way to lead. You have to find the good in everybody. And you have to ask this one really important question. If you are a leader, or even if you are just quarterbacking a team, the question is, how can I be the best leader for you? When you ask that question, you're going to get wildly different answers from everyone you ask. Some people are going to say, hey, get out of my way. Just be an escalation point for me. Some people are going to say, I don't really understand my job. Can you help me? Some might say, I just need some more help role playing. Can we work on that? Whatever it is, you got to meet them where they are. And when you understand what they need, you can advocate for them. And, in your last hour, we were talking a lot about sponsorship. And to me, having those advocates and the people that talk about you while you're not in the room is so critical. So you've got to build those bridges. You've got to find the goodness in everybody. And if they were hired to do a job, let them do it. They'll make you look good. You just got to give them the space and help them find their footing. And if you want stories, I got stories.
Oh yeah, we'll dive into some of those, because I tell you, one of the things that most people that I hear complains about is that I was hired to do this and I'm not allowed. And so what a position to be in. Why even hire somebody?
It's a waste.
If you're going to go ahead and try to do their job as well, because if you got me, you're in trouble, because I'll tell you, if you want to do it, go ahead.
Yeah.
But you ain't getting paid. And so, but you meant it. I mentioned in the brief about, the description about today's portion with you, rewire. Now, I'm not an electrician, but I'm not going to go up there and try to mess with nothing that I have no business handling. Rewiring a leader takes some work.
Yeah.
That's not easy, folks. And that just getting someone to change their mind from one thing to another takes work. Imagine about them. So what about this rewire got you so riled up and excited?
Here's the reality. When you have a leader who's been doing something a certain way for a long time, and they don't think they have an issue, you have to teach them in a way that is not going to be too offensive. It's not going to be too insulting. You have to explain what they're doing in a way that makes them understand. So that's why I tell a lot of stories. So I spoke at Harvard back in April, and there was a leader in the audience, and I was given a heads up that there were two people on his team that he didn't really respect that much. And so his style was to just interrupt them every time they talked. And I just didn't think that was the most effective way to get the best out of them. And so I wasn't supposed to know that I knew that, but he asked a question in the presentation, and I shared a story, and I said, let me explain how that person feels by using this other story. And when I did that, you could see the light bulb went on right away. And he was like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. And my goal is not to embarrass or humiliate, because that's a terrible style of leadership. My goal is to teach you and remind you how to be human and how to be heart-centered and how to put your people first. And that is the piece of leadership that is not taught. We are taught pressure. We are taught process. We are taught navigating a system, but we are not reminded of what really gets people to perform is inspiring them. Micromanagement never inspired anyone. So we've got to come from a place where people get it and they say to themselves, I see why I said that. What I just said wouldn't really work. That's really how I do it. And it's not saying everything you're doing is wrong. It's small tweaks, it's language choice, it's changing behavior. And my book is called Top Down Culture because when you model it at the top, it will flow, it will follow. And that's the piece that is so magical. So you cannot run around with your hair on fire, pointing fingers and blaming people and expect that they are going to do something different. They're going to do exactly what you're modeling because they think that's what you want. So if you think that your people aren't watching you or they're not listening to you, they are. Trust that they are. So do the things that you want them to do. You know, so often I see people's mission or their values for their company, and their behavior is not in line with those values. That's what we have to invite back in. That's what we have to teach and rewire those leaders to really behave the way they always, to be the leaders they always wish they had.
Yeah, I always find it comical, and I have an approach myself when I go to a place. I say, okay, give me all your doctrine, right? Mission statements, vision, all.
Yeah.
They give them all. And then I say, which one of these are you doing? Okay, scratch. And then I'll ball it up. This is one of the more, what are you doing? Oh,
right.
I mean, if you're not doing it, you might as well trash it.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you talk about not being offensive, some people get highly offended when you do that. But the point is made. You're not even living what you telling everybody else they should live by.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a head, and so I love the top down title to the book, and we're going to concentrate on that here now to bring some light to it. But we all know, which is it baffles me, how come it's not fixed yet? Because generation after generation after generation has been clamoring that this is not working.
Yeah.
And it's still the same. So,
well, we're promoting the wrong people and we're not asking the question, why do you want to be a leader? Like, let's start there, because so many people that get promoted, at least in sales, you are an individual contributor and your common career path is to go to manager and leader and director and vice president and GM. And that's what the career path is. And I think career paths are much more wiggly than that. I've did many first of a kind businesses that brought me in incredibly cool different directions. And I don't know, I had a rep once. She was phenomenal. She was an amazing individual contributor. She should never have been a manager. And she knew it. She didn't want to be a manager. Her skills were best as an individual contributor. She was making $1 million commission checks. Why change that? That's fantastic. So I know that there's this desire to magnify success. So when you have a rep who's doing something really, really great, you say, let's put them in a leadership position because we want them to teach other people to do what they did. But it doesn't always work, because if that rep is solely motivated by their pocketbook, are they really thinking about the people? And are they going to take the time to coach the people on their team? Are they going to lead with heart? Are they going to be a human, heart-centered leader? Like, are any of those things going to happen? Probably not. So this is the constant mistake that leaders make all the time. And asking that question, why do you want to be a leader? And giving people an opportunity to step up. You want a story? Can I tell you a story?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is a really cool story. So I had a team of reps that were kind of thrown together from a bunch of different acquisitions, and it really felt like the island of misfit toys. And I got this one woman from marketing. Her name was PJ, and PJ came over, and it was evident to me in like the first 2 months that she did not understand her job because she was putting up zeros on her forecast, and every seller knows how to lie even a little bit, and she just wasn't doing it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening with her? And while PJ is doing her thing, there's another woman, Emma, and Emma started out, I'm new to the role, and Emma is kind of like not on camera, not really participating at first. And then slowly she started to come on camera after a few more meetings. And then she started showing up and her face is all done and her hair's looking good. And she starts to lean in and participate a little bit more. And she calls me one day and she says, I just want to tell you, I really admire your style. I'm learning so much from you and I want to help. Would it be all right if I mentored PJ? I'm like, Emma, you're one of the top performers. I would love it. Thank you. And so what we learned about PJ was she definitely did not understand her job. And so I said, let's get on the phone with her and let's talk and let's find out what's going on. So we sit down with her and we said, okay, so these are your guidelines. These are your guardrails. These are the things you can say. These are the things that you can ask for. This is how you work with your partners. This is how you should be working with your client. And she's like, I can say these things. I can do these things. I said, yeah, go try. And she did. And she's starting to see some success. So Emma's continuing to mentor her. We're having these regular check-ins and I'm just watching Emma like a rock star. And I asked her, I said, hey, has anyone ever asked you if you want to be a leader, manager, anything? And she said, Lyndsay, I would love to be a manager, but nobody has ever asked me. And I said, well, rest assured, the next opportunity, I will be promoting you. Well, in 6 months' time, PJ became my top performer. And Emma became one of my absolute favorite managers. And to this day, she's still one of the best I ever got to work with. So it's just meeting people where they are. It's giving them an opportunity to shine. But had I not offered that to Emma, I would have just been a string of more leaders that didn't give her a chance.
Yeah, and that's so bad. So bad because we have real heart-centered people that because maybe they have not been asked, or maybe because they've been overlooked, like sometimes intentionally, right? Intentionally. I talk with Bobby, and me and Bobby get along, so he's got to be the next manager because I need to get along, and all these
let's
different.
talk about that. Like,
yeah.
You don't want a sea of people on your team that look and sound exactly like you. I loved when my teams were diverse. I sought out people that did not think like me, people that had a different background than me, because it made us better. We saw things differently. We contributed differently. We learned differently. And when you can build a landscape that is so fresh of ideas that way, oh my gosh, your potential is phenomenal. So stop picking your best friends to just be in your corner because you're just going to reinforce your own stuff. Make your team better. Give people that opportunity to shine. And when you're having those one-on-ones, we didn't even say this, but when you're having those one-on-ones and you are having one-on-ones that are more than just your forecast calls or your regular business check-ins, when you're having those one-on-ones, ask the question, what do you think you're really good at? And where do you want to improve? Because that's where you can use your power skills. Power skills are what some people call soft skills. We call them power skills, but you can delegate to them. That's a power skill. You can say, hey, you told me you were really good at analytics. I have this project. I want you to lead it. I've got your back. And if something goes wrong, I'm taking the blame. You never blame somebody that you delegate to, but let's see you shine. Do you know what that does for someone? And do you know what it does for the whole team? They all get to watch this and they start raising their hands saying, I want to do that. Can I have an opportunity to do that? That's fun. That's where it gets really exciting.
Absolutely. And I love that process. And it's so much fun to see, enjoyable to see when you pose those type of questions for folks, or you start driving some of that direction into their life because they are where they want to be. And you mentioned earlier, hey, why don't we just ask people, do you want to be a leader? No. Okay, well, thank you. Right. Well, and so Folks,
And
they get offended if you say no.
Most companies have like a list of who to watch. And so they'll say, oh, yeah, Lyndsay, you've been selected for the next director role and everybody's watching you. You're on the watch list. Okay, so that's exciting, I guess. That's an honor, I guess, which is great. But what about everybody else? Not everybody should be a leader, but at least understanding what people's aspirations are. And we talked about sponsorship in your last hour, but one of the things that we did at IBM really, really well, and I don't know a lot of companies that do this, is building a culture of advocacy. And what that looks like is when you say, hey, I want you to go and talk to some other leaders outside of our reporting chain. I want you to learn from them. And I want you to have an opportunity with them where you can just have 30 minutes. They can get to know you, you get to know them, and just see what happens. You're not shoving them out of the nest, but as a rep or an employee, to be given an opportunity to go meet someone else and be exposed to a different part of the business is really important. And what happens when you do this is that executive that has that 30 minutes with you is meeting someone they wouldn't necessarily meet. It's exposing them to a skill set they haven't seen before. And do you know, I got at least 3 jobs through that process. I had one, which was really cool. A leader, I met with her. She was a VP. I knew she was hiring. I was in a job that I was kind of getting to the end of my trajectory in. And so I went and met with her and she said, tell me your story. And I did. And I said, do my skills line up with any of the openings you have? And she said, yeah, Lyndsay, I've got 5 jobs you could do right now. I'm going to tell you what they are. I'm going to let you pick. Oh, do you know how exciting that was? That was so cool. And so that put me on a different career path. But that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a boss who was supportive, who was saying, I want you to reach for the stars. I want you to do things differently. And Enrique, if anyone on my team ever said to me, hey, Lyndsay, I want to go interview somewhere, I was not a gatekeeper. I was like, sure, I support you. Go ahead and I will write a recommendation for you. And people would be like, you're going to let her go? I'd say, listen, I only want people on my team who want to be here. And there's a line of people at the door dying to come in. So I'm happy to support her. I want to see her win, but I only want people that want to be here. And that was a fun way to lead, truly.
Amazing, folks. You have a platform as leaders to make not only the next generation of leaders, but to make somebody's life worth living. There's some people that are so interested in leadership, so interested in managing and different levels, right? So some will tell you, no, I just like to manage the process. I don't want to be up there talking and doing briefs and all that. No, let me manage the process. And they already have that innate desire to do that thing. And we seldom dive deep enough to even figure that out. Now, you wrote a book, and I'm going to bring that up here.
Yeah.
Right? Top-down culture. Take us through this process. Now, I know that you mentioned, hey, my struggle, what I pain points are putting in there, but how did you get to the point to write a book? Because number one, that's kind of scary sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're depositing all this thing in there. So take us through the process that got you to writing this book.
I mean, you use the word that I think about often, and that is platform. And, to me, I am trying to give as many great examples of what good leadership looks and feels like as possible. So between my podcast and my book and the content that I create on my socials, like I want these stories to resonate. I want people to relate to them, and I want them to remember them and say, that gave me the wind in my sails to go do something better. So it wasn't real hard to write. It was actually a very fast process, but it is a collection of stories and my methodology around really leveraging those power skills, why certain things work, and some really good horror stories about what doesn't work and why. I think, anytime you can illustrate and paint pictures, it helps people learn. This is not one of those, this is a 12-step process. And after step 7, you must stay at 7 before you go to 8. No, you could jump anywhere in the book at any time and say, all right, I really want to understand more about vulnerability, or I really want to talk about how psychological safety leads to innovation. Jump in anywhere and it's going to be fine. I will refer back to other parts of the book, but the stories are easy to follow. And I really did not want this to be a literary tome that people couldn't get through. Most of the people that read it say, I really heard your voice loud and clear, and I just could plow through it in one sitting. So it's meant to be easy, but this style of leadership is also meant to be easy. It's just something that people aren't taught.
What was your favorite story of the book?
Well, I'll tell you my most tragic story, because this is the one that kind of gets people really rattled. And this is under the category of what not to do. So actually I have 2 stories. I have one really good one really bad one. I'll tell you the bad one first. So the bad one, I was asked to come to a leadership meeting with my GM of my brand. And so it was about a dozen leaders, and we were in the room, and my boss at the time couldn't be on the call. So I was there and listening and just trying to pay attention. Now, my business was responsible for, I think, 50% of his overall number. So it was significant. And he made a comment that I didn't understand, and it was about my business. And so I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you said. Could you please clarify? And that was met with this response: how dare you? How dare you interrupt my flow? Do you understand how ridiculous it is that you're asking this question right here, right now? What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? This went on for about 30 seconds. And I was stunned. I was shaking on the inside. I was so upset. But on the outside, I just kind of kept it together and kept it cool. And we hung up the phone, and I called my boss and I said, you will not believe what just happened. And of course, at this point, I'm crying, because I'm like, nobody's ever embarrassed me that way, talked about me that, or talked to me that way in front of a bunch of executives and my peers. And she called another leader and said, tell me what happened. This sounds terrible. And he corroborated my story. He's like, he was so out of line. It was so not cool. And so they told him that he needed to apologize to me. And so a few days pass, and he calls me and he says, so I understand I owe you an apology, which is never a great way to get an apology. And I said, uh-huh. And he said, I don't understand what you were doing. And I said, well, you made a comment about my business and I didn't understand it. And I was just asking for clarification. I wasn't trying to do anything. And he said, but don't you understand what I was doing? And I said, no. He said, well, I was waiting for Kathy to hang herself. I'm trying to fire her. So I was setting her up to fail, and you interrupted the flow. What do you even say to that? I just thought this was like the worst experience of leadership I had been around in a long time. And needless to say, our trust was shattered. My trust of him was shattered. But what he didn't realize is everybody else that was there felt the same. They wouldn't trust him either. And I don't think he understood the impact of his words. But pretty awful, right?
I'm like, oh my Lord.
Pretty awful. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So don't do that.
Look, we get into some conversations that people, if they knew,
yeah,
oh my goodness,
terrible.
Yeah.
But can I dovetail that with a good story?
Please.
Okay. So back, this is the team with Emma and PJ. So, I had this island of misfit toys. I had all these parts of the business that came together, and nobody understood why we were in the same brand and what our story was going to be. And everybody was pretty cool with their own stuff, but they really didn't feel any need to lean on each other. And I knew that we had to create some collaboration. We had to create an environment where people wanted to engage with each other. And so I started this storytelling program. And so I challenged everyone on my team. I said, all of you are going to be asked to tell a story about what it is you sell, but you can't use acronyms and you have to tell it like you're talking to my retired school teacher mother. And so they're kind of going, oh, wow. Okay. Okay. And so we started this program, and this is originally just internally. It was just my team. And so one person got up and told the story, and all of a sudden I'm seeing like the body language change. I'm seeing people like, oh, that's what that does? Oh, you got to talk to my customer because they need this. I didn't know that that's what you did. And now all of a sudden there's some little chatter going on. There's some questions. There's ideas percolating, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. So everybody's doing these stories week after week. And then I said, I think this is just too good. We got to turn this external. So I started hosting business partners, and our clients and other reps that were selling our stuff started to come too. And we were getting hundreds of people coming to these calls. And one day I get a call from a business partner that said, I'm so glad you're doing this call series. That story that I just heard about that product is making me change my entire strategy. That was the piece I was missing. So I'm going to go get certified and skilled on that product set, but can you introduce me to your reps because I'm ready to go sell that product now? So it gave everybody this incredible platform. It gave everybody a moment to shine. It gave everybody a new skill set of storytelling, which is my favorite way to sell. But on all the people that were my peers that were managing other brands are looking, they're going, what the hell is Dowd doing over there? I don't get it. Everyone's having so much fun. They're like crushing their numbers quarter over quarter. Why is it so weird over there? What are they doing? And I loved being weird. I called my team Mavericks and Hustlers. I wanted them to think differently. I wanted them to behave differently. And we did. And we crushed it. And to this day, everybody still remembers how to do it. And that's still the way I teach people to sell. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you remind me. That's wonderful. Wonderful story to backfill that other one, because Lord,
Yeah.
I can't tell you. But folks, we've all had stories. We all can tell stories pretty much all day long. For those leaders that come into our life and shatter us, and to those that come and mend everything that they ever did, right? So we have a variety of leadership styles and leaders, both those that want to be and don't want to be. But your story reminded me, and I'll share one that I experienced when you do it right. Right now, have I done it right always? I'll tell you no,
We all
right?
make
Because
mistakes.
that's impossible.
Yeah.
Well, when I did it right, I was new to this organization, and I took what I learned in the military and I used it in terms of career progression. And so I said, okay, where's the mandates for your next promotion? Where are they? And so they brought it, and when we were going through it, and I said, okay, so this is how I strategize my career progression in the military. Let's transfer that here. And we started mapping activities, and okay, this will feed that requirement. And if you do this, that'll feed that requirement. By the time we were done with the workshop, they had a roadmap that had never been unveiled prior to that, right? And so I was happy, what I brought in, everybody's doing a week down, they're executing on their stuff, right? And so they're on all cylinders, and people wonder, well, hold up, how did these guys get this? How did they know? Because now they're a threat. And so in a group of different organizations that had different departments, all feeding into one result, a threat is a threat, right? So a week down, I get a invite to talk, and it was from other people from the other departments. And they were like, we got wind of what you did for your team, and we want to leave our team. We're gonna come to yours.
Yeah.
Said, you can't do that. Don't do that.
But it just goes to show you were doing it right, and people were responding and performing because of what you did.
So what they saw was someone whether it was me or somebody else, someone took interest like never before.
Yeah.
And someone came and showed the roadmap to the point where, shoot, we realized that if we're not on that roadmap, we're going to get left behind, right? So for those that are operating in silos, you guys want to at least talk with the other managers and see if you can get them on board. But I wasn't worried about the other managers. I was worried about my team, right?
Yeah.
And so, when you do it right, folks, people will down the road, you'll see them. One of the team members in that group is now the assistant director of that whole organization. And because she had the roadmap. And so what people require of us as leaders, it's not that hard, folks. It's not. They just want to know someone is interested in them.
Oh, yeah.
Their progression, their desires, their longevity, all that stuff. And all you have to do is ask them what they want, and then be the conduit, right? Be that bridge to get them there. So you shared 2 great stories in this book. You talk about another one, which, all right, let's not everything, because you got to bring it out and sell it. But
well, it's not out yet. It's going to be out next week.
All right. So what's the idea around that one?
Yeah, so this is an international anthology of 22 women. It is also focused on leadership, but each of us have a chapter on what we do to contribute to the world in our style. And the publisher is out of Scotland, but we have women from UAE, from the US, from the UK, from all over the world. And their stories are incredible and impressive. And so it's called Voices of Women. And it's an anthology, and I have a chapter in it. So yeah, it's exciting. It was a huge honor to be asked to share my story.
Well, I'm so happy that you took that opportunity. Now, if anybody has followed me, should understand by now that I am a global leadership minded kind of guy.
Yeah.
I can't stand any one country to say this is how you do it, because it's just, that might be how you're doing it there, but go try to do that over here.
Yeah.
You're going to be in some mess. Right. And so thanks the Navy for taking me abroad. Literally, the only section I did not traverse was the Indian Ocean. I went all the way around the rest of it. And so when you have that type of exposure, and I think that sometimes, Lyndsay, the reason why leaders are having such a hard time is because they haven't been exposed as much as we would want them to be by the time they get into leadership.
That's right.
So I've traversed the world, gone to different countries, on the Navy's dime. So thank you, Navy, for that. But I have had exposure to different ways of leading in different areas of the world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't all work the same. But as a leader, the diversity of thought in terms of how you apply it individually is a global leadership minded type of thing. You have a globe in your center, in your group.
Yeah.
Right? Not everybody's from the same place. And so when you apply that perspective to your group and you say, like you have mentioned earlier, what do you need? And what do you need? And how does that look like for you? And what does that mean to you?
What you say might not land right with someone. And so you have to build trust. And those questions of how can I be the best leader for you? And what are you good at? That is a bridge for them to be able to give feedback and take feedback from you. It's so important. And so if you've built the trust and you've created psychological safety, they should be able to come to you and say, hey, when you said this, I took it this way. Is that what you meant? And hopefully you have an opportunity to explain yourself, but you have to take those moments and be like, oh gosh, no, I'm so sorry. And I really don't want you to feel that way. This is what I meant. But if you don't have that trust, you can't have those conversations, and you can shatter trust in a millisecond, as you heard from the story I told.
Yeah.
It does not take a lot to ruin trust. It does take a lot to build it. And you have to show up with actions. You have to show up and walk the walk. And when you're doing those kinds of things, that's what's going to give you that opportunity to talk about radical candor. Radical candor is one of those concepts. A few years ago, people were like, sweet, I love radical candor. I can say exactly what I think whenever I want. I'm just brutally honest. Well, that's not an effective way to lead. That's just polarizing, and that's just going to piss people off. So don't behave that way. You have to build the trust so you can have those honest conversations.
Yeah, and keep in mind that we are in people business, right?
Yeah.
Leadership is people business, heart-centered, which you talk about, and we'll talk about your podcast here as you are reaching another milestone with that. But tell us a little bit about why you titled it that, and then what have you learned from your experience with the podcasting?
Oh gosh. Well, Heartbeat for Hire came about. I was talking with one of my advisors early on when I first decided I was starting my company, and it had a different name then, which didn't have nearly as much of a heartbeat as this one does, no pun intended. And I was describing what I do and who I work with and how I work. And he's like, so you're basically like a heartbeat for hire. And I was like, that's it. So it stuck. And that became the name of my company and my podcast. And the podcast, again, I said, I use my podcast to illustrate stories of what good leadership and good culture looks and feels like. So I have Olympians and world champion athletes and CEOs and doctors and actors and disruptors and incredible humans with incredible stories. And there are many stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. So when I first started, and that same advisor was the one who challenged me and said, you're going to start a podcast. And I go, what do you mean? I'm not a journalist. I don't even know what I think I've listened to like one podcast, and it was a true crime podcast. And he's like, no, you're going to start, and I'll help you with your first couple of guests, but you're good on camera. You make great conversation. You'll be great. And I was like, oh, Lord. So I went and bought the microphone and I started. And 107 episodes later, I've never missed a week. It's in the top 5% globally. And it is a total joy, a total labor of love. And the guests that have been on are so impressive, so exciting. And the ones I've got coming up are phenomenal. I've got Claude Silver, Jessica Zweig, Paul Zach, Matt Emerzian, Mick Sheldrick, so many incredible people that their stories are just so heartwarming, impressive, tragic, all of the things. But my goal is to entertain you, but also to teach you. So
and I'm looking forward to seeing all of those come through. Folks, if you have not listened to the podcast yet, find it and listen to it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube and all the audio platforms. It's easy to find. So you can look for me, or you can look for Heartbeat for Hire, but you'll find it either way.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure to have all those links in the comments by the time you're looking at this, either live or replay. You'll see it in there. Now, Lyndsay, you also speak, you also do some coaching. Yes. How does that work for somebody that's identified through this conversation?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I want those people that feel that way to know I'm a safe space. I don't tell these stories because I want to put you on blast. I tell these stories because everyone deserves the best leaders possible, and your people are hungry for it. They are begging for it. So I coach C-suites. And the reason that I coach C-suites over long engagements, like 12 months or longer, is because we want to rewire, like we talked about before. We want to rewire and get everyone singing from the same song sheet. So that is one approach that I take. I also coach individual C-suite leaders. for a various number of reasons. And that is a total joy. The speaking stuff, it's keynotes predominantly, and it is, really kind of through storytelling, explain these power skills, explain how you can immediately take action and change the way your people feel, change the tone of your organization, and ultimately how you perform. Because all this, it's fun to talk about, but the whole reason we're doing it is to drive results. And that's really what everybody needs.
Well, folks, if you want some results out of your leadership and you're thinking that, hey, maybe I'm making some errors here, have realized that a rewiring session is due, then Lyndsay is the person that you should be reaching out to. How would they do that for you if they want to, either connect or get you to speak for them or actually have them help them on their journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very active on LinkedIn, but you can always go to my website at heartbeatforhire.com. Send me a DM, send me an email. I would love to talk with you. I think on both my website and LinkedIn, you can set up a Calendly right away. I also teach LinkedIn workshops. So for executives or people that know that their LinkedIn profile might be a little dusty and needs a little zhuzh, we break it down from top to bottom. This is actually something I love doing for teams too. So people need to understand that LinkedIn is a platform for expertise. It is not, it's no longer just a resume holder. It's really a place where your expertise can shine. And when you can invest in your people and say, hey guys, we're going to have a session where we're going to all start to curate our personal brands. And that way the content you get from our company is going to look so much better because we took the time to do this. And oh, by the way, there is no such thing as job security. There's only career security, and you have to build that for yourself. And that's why LinkedIn is so paramount. So I love doing those sessions. And very often those sessions turn into more work because people are like, oh, she's a lot of fun. I like her style. Can we get her to be our coach? So that happens. Or people will say, can you come and speak to the company? We had so much fun with you. And I do inject a lot of humor and a lot of stories, as you've heard. So.
Absolutely. Well, folks, if you find yourself in that position as a leader or as a corporation where you want to either revamp, rewire your leadership or get your presence, right? Because it's so important. Leadership presence is not just what you bring out on a day-to-day. Hopefully that's intact, but it's also how you are represented in different mediums. I find a lot of leaders say two stories, right? And that's not often a good thing.
And Enrique, do you know that executives get 561% more reach just by nature of their title? That's huge. People don't understand that. And if you're not posting, you're missing out. You're missing a whole other level of engagement that can drive clients to you, brands are 82% more trustworthy when their executives post. So I think a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, I go there when I need to look for a job, or I go there when I've got a promotion. You're wasting time.
So and some space, because this is if you already have an account,
most people do,
right? Most people do. Then you're wasting that space, and which can drive all those things that you have mentioned. Well, Lyndsay, thank you so much sharing this afternoon with me on Aloha Friday Live. Folks, it's been a double header, probably one of the couple of times that I do it in the year, but I really wanted to highlight both aspects of the leadership realm that are being talked about on a daily. If you want to progress career-wise in planning, the previous hour it's for you. If you want to progress by rewiring yourself and the things that you're doing, then this hour was for you. Lyndsay, thank you so much for being with me. Folks, it has been a pleasure to be with you once again on Friday, Aloha Friday Live. And I just want to remind everybody that we do have some things going for us. DTLW Podcast, which is the one that I do, is in the hunt for 700 subscribers. We're only 27 people away from getting that milestone. at that point, it's not just for nothing. I'm going to put all those people in for a random drawing for Anthony Truck's book, Identity Shift. I tell you, amazing man, speaker, trainer, and author. And he has made that book available to one of our subscribers, which is great. Please do so by going to YouTube at DTLW Podcast, and you'll find our show. I also want to thank Parade Deck for streaming our show. Parade Deck is a military spouse, first responder type of platform. They stream all the military creators on there. So if you don't know about Parade Deck, go to paradedeck.com and you'll be able to find them. And you can follow me by following that 731 is my code if you want to follow our show. But today has been about Lyndsay. Thank you for being with us, my fellow outlier. And I did put the Outlier Project in the comments.
Good.
Check them out. We're
hang
doing
with
some
us.
great stuff. All right, folks. Thank you. We will see each other next week as we get another guest on Aloha Friday Live. Mahalo. Be safe. God bless you all.